Radical group seized Aleppo, Syria's second largest city, on Saturday after the army withdrew from the city. Around 18 million Romanians will go to the polls this Sunday to elect 331 members of the Chamber of Deputies and 131 members of the Senate for the next 4 years. And the trial of the General Benedicto Lucas Garcia, accused of genocide against indigenous peoples in Guatemala, has been postponed. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Radical group seized Aleppo, Syria's second largest city, on Saturday after the army withdrew from the city. At the moment, there is a large displacement of civilians from the city for fear that radicals will use the 2 million inhabitants as human shields. They added that the streets of the city are empty, civilians are staying in their homes, and employees are not going to their workplaces for fear of the radicals roaming the streets. The Syrian Army has retreated to Aleppo International Airport and the Nairab Air Base, while large convoys of reinforcement continue to arrive to launch a counterattack. And in Syria, President Bashar al-Assad assured that the government forces, with the support of Russia, continue to strengthen the defense lines in the affected areas. During a telephone conversation with the President of the United Arab Emirates, Mohammed bin Zayed, the Syrian leader said that his country continues to defend its stability and territorial integrity against all terrorists. In this context, Bashar al-Assad also stressed that Syria, with the help of its allies and friends, is capable of defeating and eliminating the terrorists, no matter the severity of their attacks. Israeli occupation forces carried out 3 massacres in the Gaza Strip during the last 24 hours, leaving at least 47 Palestinians killed. Health authorities added that the attacks left about 108 wounded. Authorities warned that both figures could be even higher since many of the victims remain trapped under the rubble of the infrastructure affected by the bombings. Israeli forces continue to block the entry of ambulances and civil defense teams. According to the most recent health report, at least 44,429 Palestinians have been killed and another 105,250 have been wounded since October 2023, mostly women and children. And in Palestine, the Foreign Ministry condemned the constant aggressions of the Israeli forces against the country, with emphasis on the Gaza Strip, which it considered violations of international law. In a statement, the Foreign Ministry stressed that the continuous Zionist aggressions by the Tel Aviv regime requires international action to stop the genocide against the Palestinian people, which has so far claimed the lives of more than 43,000 Palestinian citizens. It also questioned the continued Zionist attacks and incursions against the people and the aggressions in the occupied West Bank. The Foreign Ministry urged the world community to put pressure on the Israeli regime to stop the genocide and allow the Palestinian National Authority to exercise full sovereignty over the territory. And the United Nations Relief and Public Works Agency has warned that people in the Gaza Strip completely depend on humanitarian aid amidst Israeli aggressions. The agency shared testimonies of displaced Palestinians who have been unable to get medicine or food after they ran out of them due to Israeli restrictions on operations in the region. They say civilians in Gaza have been forced to rely solely on humanitarian aid, while United Nations availability of resources keeps falling due to the Israeli blockade. The agency reiterates the urgent need for an immediate ceasefire, stressing that Israel continues to control the entry of supplies into the Gaza Strip, thus aggravating the humanitarian crisis. And the port city of Tyre, Lebanon, is slowly coming back to life on Saturday as businesses that had suffered damage during the conflict between Israel and Hezbollah reopened. Over the past 3 days, some of the thousands of residents displaced by the 13-month attacks that escalated in late September returned to their homes and businesses. Store owners were reporting painting and rebuilding their cafes, while other businesses resumed work. The area has been subjected to almost daily airstrikes for the past 2 months, flattening entire buildings and forcing many of its residents to flee to safer areas in Lebanon.
كتير صعب وضرب وأزمة اقتصادية كتير خانقة يعني.
The situation is very difficult, with bombings and a crushing economic crisis. Of course, we have seen that people are slowly coming back, reopening their shops, trying to fix their situation, and, as you can see, they are repairing things. Those who have broken doors are replacing them and repairing things.
And December 1st marks the International Day of Prisoners for Peace, a day to recognize the courage of conscientious objectors who are imprisoned because of their resistance to war. The aim is to support people who have been imprisoned for taking action against war and in favor of peace. International Prisoners for Peace Day was declared by War Resisters International, a global network of peace and anti-militarist groups around the world. War Resisters International encourages everyone to support the cause of these people who have been imprisoned for trying to defend peace. And now we have a short break coming up, but first remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. The Russian armed forces liberated Linka and Petrovka, two strategic settlements in the Donetsk region. The Russian Defense Ministry reported that Ukrainian forces lost over 470 soldiers. Meanwhile, the Russian troops also destroyed illegal military facilities, drone production workshops, and long-range missiles in western Donetsk. In addition, Ukrainian troops also lost a U.S.-made armored personnel carrier, a howitzer from the United Kingdom, among other equipment. And this Sunday, over 18 million Romanians go to the polls to elect 331 members of the Chamber of Deputies and 134 members of the Senate for the next 4 years. This year, 31 political parties and alliances, as well as 19 ethnic minority organizations, take part in the electoral race, with lists that include 8,168 candidates. Moreover, they are joined by 58 independent candidates. Voting is currently underway in 18,968 polling stations across the nation. The election day will run until 9 p.m. local time, although permanent electoral authority may extend it for a maximum of 3 hours in case there are queues of voters towards the closing time. Romanians living abroad can vote since Saturday in 950 centers set up in other countries. The legislative elections in Romania are being held barely a week after the first round of the presidential elections, which could be repeated in mid-December if the Constitutional Court decides to annul them. This happens after two eliminated opponents, Cristian Teres and Sebastian Constantin Popescu, each filed a petition to annul the November 24th election, alleging fraud. Independent candidate Colin Georgescu was winning in the first round with 22.94% of the vote, followed by the leader of the Union to Save Romania, Elena Lasconi, with 19.18%. And in Iceland, the first partial results of the parliamentary elections gave the center-left Social Democrats a small advantage, which could lead to a possible change of government after the fall of the Conservative coalition. Social Democratic Alliance, led by Kristrún Frostadóttir, will be the most voted party according to preliminary data from several constituencies. Slightly behind will be the center-right Independence Party of Prime Minister General Benedicto. In third and fourth place respectively were the Progressive Party and the left-wing movement. Although these two last parties were in the previous government coalition, significant losses recorded could even mean the departure of the left-wing movement, not only from the government but also from parliament. And the Electoral Commission of Namibia extended until this Saturday the general elections initially scheduled for last Wednesday due to long delays and complications with the technical team, while votes continued to be counted. In this context, more than 1.4 million registered voters were called to elect their next president and 96 members of the 104 seats that make up the National Assembly.
I want to assure the nation that the Commission is fully committed to ensuring integrity of the electoral process and reinforce our commitment to free and fair elections. We anticipate that the preliminary results of constituencies verified will be available shortly after the close of the extended polls. And we aim to formally start announcing these results today.
Georgian President Salome Zurabishvili has described the country's government as illegitimate while strong protests continue in the streets of the capital. Zurabishvili announced on Saturday that she would not resign from office despite the fact that her mandate expires in December.
I've just today announced that I am gathering around me representatives or society, civil society and political parties representatives to form a national council that will be the political arm, I would say, of this delegitimacy process and that will carry the stability in this country, because you need. Main message is very clear. It's no business, not even as usual, no business with the legitimate representatives, non-representatives of this country. Business with us. We represent the Georgian population, support us in our legitimate demand of having new elections, have the mission come here to help us set the provisions for these new elections.
In the Georgian capital, Tbilisi, the police repressed demonstrators. Law enforcement officers violently prevented the crowd from storming Parliament. The demonstrators are outraged by the government's decision to freeze EU accession negotiations until 2028. In this context, the officers used water cannons to chase the crowd away from the government building, while the protesters put up resistance and threw firecrackers at the police, the officials remaining in Parliament. After clashes between protesters and security units, special forces intervened and took control of the area. And French Agriculture Minister Annie Genvar announced on Saturday a series of measures in favor of farmers in an attempt to calm growing tensions in the sector. Among the measures announced by the ministry is the creation of a council to speed up marketing applications for certain products in order to respond to the most urgent needs of certain crops. The French Health Safety Agency has been strongly criticized by industry unions for having banned or restricted the use of some pesticides. Measures were also announced to accelerate the implementation of livestock projects and to shorten deadlines. We now have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Fun short break, don't go away. Welcome back. The trial of General Benedicto Lucas Garcia, accused of genocide against native people in Guatemala, has been postponed. Guatemala's Public Prosecutor's Office requested on November 8th a sentence of 2,860 years in prison for Benedicto Lucas Garcia in relation to his alleged role in the massacre of more than 1,200 indigenous people during the country's internal armed conflict. However, on Thursday, November 28th, an appeal court suspended the trial against the 92-year-old retired general. Lucas Garcia is already serving a 58-year prison sentence since 2018, imposed for the first disappearance of a young man and the rape and torture of his sister in 1981. Bolivia's Supreme Electoral Tribunal has called for elections to renew the country's highest judicial bodies by popular vote. Out of 139 candidates pre-selected by the Bolivian Plurinational Legislative Assembly, 17 were eliminated, and so far there are 122 candidates from which new members of the judiciary will be elected. Member of the Supreme Electoral Tribunal, Tahuishi Quispe, affirmed that until this Saturday, this is the number of contenders on the ballot to be elected next December 15th as magistrates of the Plurinational Constitutional Tribunal, the Supreme Court of Justice, and the Agro-Environmental, as well as members of the Council of the Magistracy. In the United States, President-elect Donald Trump threatened to impose 100% tariffs on BRICS countries if they try to end the international dominance of the dollar. Through a statement on his social media, Trump warned the bloc that they must respect the U.S. dollar and that he will not allow the creation of a new currency that would jeopardize their hegemony. Likewise, the U.S. President-elect stated that he will take all necessary measures against BRICS so that it does not threaten his economic position in international trade. This comes after the member countries of the bloc discussed at the summit meeting how to boost transactions in currencies other than the U.S. dollar. In South Korea, in the context of the fifth session of the UN Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee, talks for an agreement on plastic pollution come to an end on Sunday as nations continue to debate whether to address the exponential growth of plastic production. Negotiators spent all day Saturday behind closed doors trying to reach an agreement, while the latest draft of the treaty has yet to be released. The battle over whether to limit the amount of plastic companies can produce is the most contentious. Delegates from Panama and Fiji said that nations not defending the treaty requirements should get out of the way.
Every piece that we allow to produce without limits is a direct assault on our health, on our nature, and our children. For those blocking progress, you are allowing this crisis to fester, and it will kill us. This is just not a treaty about plastics. This is humanity's line on the sand. If we don't get an ambitious treaty out of Busan, it will be a global betrayal. If we don't get an ambitious treaty out of Busan, history will not forgive us. This is the time to step up or get out. Thank you.
Who never, ever fails to deliver.
The Botafogo soccer team made history on Saturday by winning its first Libertadores Cup, defeating Athletic Mineiro 3-1 in the final of the 65th edition of the Continental Tournament, a match played at the Monumental Stadium in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Botafogo showed great defensive solidity and an outstanding performance by its key players. With this victory, the club from Rio de Janeiro joins the elite of Libertadores champions. With this title, Barcelona has a total of 24 Libertadores Cups, consolidating its position as the country with the second most titles in the history of the tournament, only behind Argentina, which has 25. And every year on December 1st, the world commemorates World AIDS Day and comes together to support people living with HIV and to remember those who have died from AIDS-related illnesses. On December 1st, many awareness-raising events take place. People take to the streets wearing a red ribbon, symbol of the fight against human immunodeficiency syndrome. Moreover, groups mobilize to raise funds for research and to express their support and solidarity with people living with AIDS. The idea is being promoted that an end to AIDS is possible. However, there are still barriers that slow down the path to ending this disease. We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website, telesurenglish.net. So join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.